Orange, Texas tonight and Far East Texas preparing for the landfall of Hurricane Laura. Conditions expected to rapidly get worse tonight. We've got the latest coming up.
Long lines and longer drives just to get here. Tonight, we talk with some of the evacuees flooding into San Antonio, trying to stay safe from the hurricane.
Major Hurricane Laura turning in the Gulf, getting a little bit closer to the Texas and Louisiana coastline. A comprehensive update coming right up.
A deputy-involved shooting leaves a 31-year-old man dead outside of his home in far west Bexar County. I'm Devin Clark. Coming up, we'll tell you why the sheriff says that deputy was forced to pull his weapon and what neighbors say they saw throughout the ordeal.
Preparations underway for day 3 of the Republican National Convention. We'll check in for a preview with Nadia Romero. The news at 5 starts right now.
First at 5, we are tracking Hurricane Laura. The now Category 4 storm upgraded this afternoon, expected to make landfall near the Texas-Louisiana coast sometime tonight.
We'll take a look at the storm's projected path with Adam Caskey in just a bit. But first, meteorologist Justin Horn and photojournalist Bill Caldera join us from Orange, Texas, east of Beaumont.
Yeah, Justin, what have you seen over the last 18 hours? How are you noticing that Laura is announcing her presence shortly?
You know, so far, we haven't seen much. We had one rain band where we got some gusty winds and a little bit of rain, but we think that it's going to get much, much worse tonight. Right now, the waters are still pretty calm. This is the Sabine River here behind me. Now, down the way in Sabine Pass, close to the coast, the water has come up 2 to 3 feet. We're starting to see a little bit of water rise here, and we'll see it back up into this river probably later tonight. I think the bigger issue is going to be winds. We can see some winds up to gusting to 100, maybe 120 miles per hour where we are here in Orange along the Sabine River. And there's a lot of timber around here. A lot of lumber is produced here. And those trees can fall on houses. They can fall on power lines. That's going to be one of the dangerous things that we're going to have to watch for on top of the storm surge. And, of course, the heavy rain. One thing that has been interesting, we've talked to several people who have opted to stay. Not everyone is evacuating, and this is a pretty dangerous situation. We're hoping that floodwaters aren't so bad here, but it definitely is a possibility. And again, those strong winds are going to be a problem too. We're going to be in Storm Chaser tonight. We're going to hunker down, find a safe place to be, and make sure we're safe from this storm. But we'll also be bringing you live updates as Laura moves closer, a massive storm as it's heading towards the Texas-Louisiana border. Guys.
Justin Horn live from Orange. Thank you, Justin. What started as an expectation to help maybe a few hundred evacuees, it quickly turned into more than 1,000 people seeking shelter in San Antonio throughout the night.
That line at the check-in site on Gambler Road continued growing today. It's where we find our Garrett Berger. And Garrett, are you hearing any concerns about the number of people that have shown up?
Up in hotel rooms, so they'll be able to stay for at least 7 nights if they want to. Fortunately, there are plenty of those rooms available because of the pandemic. Because as of 3 o'clock, our last update that we got from the city, more than 1,800 evacuees have arrived here in San Antonio at the Gambler Processing Center. We spoke with some of them earlier today.
Hundreds of cars lined up hundreds of miles from the coast, far from home, but also danger.
Just thankful to God that we out here and we're safe.
Evacuees looking for a free room as they wait out Hurricane Laura have to come through this central processing site on Gambler Road, close to the AT&T Center. So many showed up yesterday and overnight, more than 1,400 by this morning, that not all the contracts for hotel rooms have been finished yet. So many had to come back today to be assigned again to a hotel for a longer term stay.
They only gave us a voucher for 1 night. So we had to leave and then get back in line to get another voucher to have shelter again to stay.
One pair we talked to was just arriving today. They had tried the Houston area first, but had heard there were some evacuations around there too.
We got family out here and they was telling us to come out here because they was giving free room. So trying to get a free room, man, and stay out the way of this Laura hurricane.
One group said they left Port Arthur with no destination in mind, but called 211 on the way and got information.
On the way out here, you know, we trying to figure out a place to go. We didn't want to go to Austin. We didn't want to go to Dallas. It was a little too far. But hey, we here.
One family came from even farther, Lake Charles, Louisiana.
We hoping, man, we have a home to go home to, because this hurricane is for to take out everything that way.
Normally in evacuations like this, people would be set up in mass shelters like houses or retail space. But because of the COVID-19 pandemic, they're doing the hotel rooms. Coming up at 6 o'clock, we'll tell you about some of the COVID-19 precautions that the city is taking. Live at Gambler Road, I'm Garrett Berger, KSAT 12 News.
Just a long line of cars. Evacuees coming to San Antonio. Let's take a live look at Galveston right now from the island. You can see, maybe the waves are a little bit bigger, but Laura not announcing her presence yet.
No, not yet. It's exactly what Justin was saying, Adam. I mean, it's calm before the storm, literally.
Well, yeah, and one thing there, Galveston Island, they're on the side of the hurricane where the wind is actually blowing offshore right now. They're not on the front right quadrant where it's really starting to push the water onshore even already. So let's talk about this. Here's the latest on Tropical Storm Laura, a major hurricane. This is a catastrophic hurricane. Max sustained winds right now at 145 miles per hour with some gusts close to that eye wall of 175 miles per hour. Central pressure, 947 millibars. And this is headed to the north-northwest. Expected to make landfall around 1 a.m. later on tonight as a Category 4 hurricane with some winds around that center of 150 miles per hour. And of course, some higher gusts associated with it and then push due northward. And it's basically going to make landfall right along the Texas-Louisiana line. We have a lot more to talk about with this storm, including storm surge and what is storm surge. We're going to explain all of this coming right up.
Thank you, Adam. Working together in a time of need, it's what our KSAT community partners are doing with the American Red Cross. Right now, they're in need of disaster volunteers.
San Antonio always steps up. So far, they've had about 30 people in our area sign up to help, but they're still trying to meet their goal of 160 Red Cross volunteers from our area. We have a link to register right now on our website. Just go to ksatcommunity.com. Forced to shoot. Bexar County Sheriff Javier Salazar says one of his deputies had no choice but to shoot a man after he became erratic and violent during a mental health call.
That man, 31-year-old Damian Daniels, died outside of his Far West Side home yesterday. Devin Clark now with how that shooting unfolded for deputies and neighbors.
A mental health call to a home on Liberty Field took a deadly turn last night.
Tons of cop cars and an ambulance and a fire truck.
Going to give you all an update on.
Bexar County Sheriff Javier Salazar says deputies had been to the house for 31-year-old Damian Lamar Daniels several times over the past few days.
Reports were that he was suicidal, that he was despondent over the loss of several family members. Very recently, there was also some indicators that he may have been seeing things and hearing voices.
Last night, attempts to calm down and help a reportedly erratic Daniels didn't work, despite numerous efforts by first responders who witnesses say filled the block.
And we were leaving for a meeting at 7. We walked out of our house at 7. They had already closed off the streets and they weren't allowing anyone to leave or come down the streets.
Trying to convince him to get help.
Salazar says even though a deputy tried to bond with Daniels, he became aggressive and grabbed a deputy's stun gun. After failing to be subdued by another deputy's stun gun, Salazar says Daniels reached for a gun he had in his own waistband. After refusing to drop it, Salazar says a deputy shot Daniels twice in the torso. Tonight, some neighbors are trying to forget what they saw.
Looked like a body under a sheet. And then once more cars came, then they just blocked the view.
And this evening, there is still debris and remnants of blood outside of Daniel's home. And we know that 2 veteran deputies and a trainee deputy will be placed on administrative leave and then administrative duty as 2 separate investigations continue. Reporting on the Far West Side, Devin Clark, KSAT 12 News.
Thank you, Devin. Now new details about a suspect connected to 2 deadly shootings. Here's a look at 32-year-old Sacramento Martinez, who now faces a charge of capital murder. Martinez is accused of fatally shooting 33-year-old Marisol Martinez and leaving her body in an SUV on I-35 in New Braunfels yesterday. The 2 reportedly had a previous relationship. However, the suspect had been put on a protective order following a March 2019 family violence incident. Investigators say after leaving the SUV, Martinez stole an 18-wheeler from a nearby truck stop and shot the driver, 45-year-old Daniel Seeger of Mission. The 18-wheeler later crashed in San Antonio and Seeger was found dead inside. Martinez is currently waiting transfer to the Comal County Jail.
Night 3 of the mostly virtual Republican National Convention will continue with an appeal to women. Following First Lady Melania Trump's keynote address last night. But for tonight's biggest moment, it's going to be Mike Pence accepting the nomination for 4 more years as vice president. Nadia Romero explains.
Republicans are halfway through their 2020 national convention, with last night's headliner, First Lady Melania Trump, appealing directly to suburban and female voters.
In my husband, you have a president who will not stop fighting for you and your families.
The First Lady's speech contrasting at times with the direct attacks delivered by some of the president's most outspoken supporters.
Joe says he'll build back better. Yeah, build the Bidens back better.
He's a career politician who's never signed the front of a check and does not know the slightest thing about the American worker or the American business.
The president also putting the powers of the presidency on full display, holding a naturalization ceremony and issuing a pardon.
I grant John, I'm not sure you know this, a full pardon.
Wednesday night, Vice President Mike Pence will accept the nomination and will make the case to re-elect the man who put him on the ticket. Second Lady Karen Pence will also speak.
This is the third night, and the theme tonight, as you said, is Land of Heroes. And America is made up of people who are heroes and everyday Americans. So you'll hear from some everyday Americans.
The vice president is also expected to continue the attacks on the Democratic nominee. Other big names on Wednesday include Senators Joni Ernst and Marsha Blackburn and South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem. And more appearances from the man at the top of the ticket, President Trump, are expected. In Washington, I'm Nadia Romero.
All right, Nadia joins us live now. Nadia, thank you. Kellyanne Conway is expected to deliver one of her final addresses before stepping down from her role at the White House. What can we expect to hear from her tonight?
Oh, Steve, that resignation came as a surprise to many people. She has always been one of the president's most loyal members of his administration. She's expected to talk about why she believes the president is a champion of women and everyday heroes, which really goes along with the theme tonight of Land of Heroes. Steve?
Nadia Romero live in Washington. Thank you, Nadia.
A 17-year-old man has been arrested in Wisconsin following the fatal shootings of 2 people during a protest last night. The protest regarding the shooting of Jacob Blake, who was paralyzed after he was shot by Kenosha police on Sunday. Video shows the officers following Blake as he tries getting into an SUV. Then one officer fires shots at Blake's back. It's unclear what happened prior to that shooting, but today the family's attorney said Blake did not have a weapon.
The search might be over for 23-year-old Elder Fernandez, a Fort Hood soldier reported missing last week. The Fernandez family attorney says yesterday a body was found hanging from a tree in Temple. The 23-year-old's driver's license found in a backpack. Over the weekend, we learned Fernandez had transferred units after recently reporting sexual assault. An autopsy has been ordered.
1 in 5 adults in the U.S. experience mental illness each year, and with the coronavirus pandemic creating unprecedented changes to our everyday lives, it's important to know what resources are available and those wanting to seek help. And that's why we, along with our KSAT community partners, held a mental health virtual town hall this afternoon. Our incredible panel of doctors and mental health experts led important conversations on everything from homeschooling to homelessness amid this pandemic.
If you take into consideration the fact that loneliness kills, and yet right now at a time of COVID, we are faced with everyday tragedies that we can't reach out and hug someone and kiss them and love on them the way we used to. So all of these everyday tragedies are upon us.
If you missed that today and you want to see the full link by tonight on KSAT.com, the full town hall will be there and you can share that link with anyone in need. If you or someone you know needs help, we have a full list of resources on KSAT.com.
If you need help, get help.
Absolutely.
It's an important part of getting you from point A to point B, but your car battery may not be something you think about too often, at least not until you're forced to. Up next, we're going to turn to the experts for their recommendations for the most reliable car batteries. Coming up. It is a sinking feeling. You put the key in the ignition to start the car and nothing. You have a dead battery. We've all been there. Well, now Consumer Reports has just tested more than 100 car batteries. 12 on your side's Marilyn Moritz has the results to get us all back on the road.
Cars may be super high tech now, but most still require a good old battery.
Consumer Reports recommends you inspect or test your battery every year. And if it's low, replace it before you get stranded. That will save you a headache and money, too, because you can shop around. Batteries pretty much look alike, but to see which ones will go the distance, CR put more than 100 to the test, freezing them to simulate a cold morning and seeing how long they'll last if you leave your headlights on.
We also put a load on the batteries to simulate a vehicle starting thousands of times, just the way you would rely on a car starting year after year.
The results? CR named these batteries best buys for performance and value. 2 EverStart models, both less than $100, sold at Walmart, and an AC Delco for about $125, sold at auto parts stores and online. Before you head to the store, make sure you know the correct size of your battery and look for a new one that's less than 3 months old. The manufacturing date is stamped on it. Batteries can lose strength when they're stored. Marilyn Moritz, KSAT 12 News.
All right, the weather situation obviously boils down to Hurricane Laura.
Yeah, it really does. And I do want to point out that around here, we will have really little to no effects from Hurricane Laura. Minimal rain chances here. It's going to make landfall right along the Texas-Louisiana state line, the Sabine River there, later on tonight, probably around 1 a.m. as a Category 4 major, you could say catastrophic hurricane. So we're going to talk a lot about that. And of course, some of the important elements of it, winds, but particularly storm surge as well. So let's get right to it with the very latest on Hurricane Laura, and you can see it's well defined with that well-defined eye, the center of circulation there, as you get in these major hurricanes. It's up to max sustained winds of 145 miles per hour around the eye wall of that hurricane. Category 4, likely to remain Category 4 as we get into tonight. You see the Sabine River here, so basically Port Arthur to about the Pecan Beach area is where we should have the most devastating effects in terms of the wind associated with Hurricane Laura. Then it weakens as it heads northward up the Sabine River in extreme eastern Texas, far western Louisiana, and weakens to a tropical storm by about midday on Thursday. All right, so let's talk about the wind associated with this system and where the highest probabilities are for those winds. The hurricane force winds are anything basically 74 miles per hour and greater. And this is a probability scale that you're looking at. In here, basically 90 to 100% chance you'll have those sustained winds in excess of 74 miles per hour. And Port Arthur, right about there, Port Arthur area toward Pecan Beach, you basically have that extreme high, almost probability, almost guarantee of those hurricane force winds. But it's not just the wind that causes damage in hurricanes. A lot of times it's the water, not just rainwater, but the surge of water that comes off the ocean. And we're expecting a 15 to 20 foot storm surge here near Cameron. Now, a lot of this is wildlife refuge, but there are some beach and coastal communities here right along the Gulf, and that's going to be catastrophic for them. You get down to Galveston and only about a 2 to 4 foot storm surge is what we're expected. So let's talk about storm surge. What is it? It's the abnormal rise of water over the predicted tide level. So if the tide's expected to be here, well, your storm surge would be that level above the predicted tide. So with a weaker storm, you just get some bigger waves and it comes up a little bit higher on the beach. For a stronger storm, a moderate storm, maybe a Category 2, almost a low end 3, you'll get a higher rise in water with some structural impacts. But with the storm that we're dealing with, this is, of course, Hurricane Laura, major hurricane. I mean, you're talking water rise of 20 feet possible right where that eye is going, especially on the right-hand side of that eye. And that's where the devastating impacts are from the storm surge, just the sheer volume of water being pushed on shore. The rainfall, of course, we're talking 7 to 10 inches or more right along that path there associated with that storm. Not as hot around here today, but we're mostly in the mid to upper 90s. This evening, partly cloudy, maybe a stray shower, a 20% chance tomorrow. A few pop-up showers, but guess what? Unrelated to Laura. Just regular garden variety pop-up showers that we sometimes see around here in the afternoons. Otherwise, partly cloudy, near 100, same old through the weekend.
We have a lot of those evacuees here. They can get the KSAT weather app too, so they can kind of stay in touch and see what's going on there.
Yep. Big believer in the KSAT weather app.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. The NBA has some rescheduling to do.
Milwaukee Bucks refused to take the court today over the protest of the shooting of Jacob Blake. As a result, 3 games have been postponed, maybe more in the NBA bubble. When we come back, more about this latest and developing story out of Orlando, and our first game canceled due to COVID-19 this week in high school football. Coming up. The Milwaukee Bucks decided not to take the floor for this afternoon's Game 5 against the Orlando Magic. As a result, the NBA postponed 3 games. The Bucks and the Magic, Houston and Oklahoma, the Lakers and the Blazers. This is happening in the wake of the shooting of Jacob Blake in Wisconsin. One of the main reasons why the players agreed to restart the NBA season was to focus on Black Lives Matter movement. And after Blake was shot 7 times, the players now feel a stronger statement must be made, especially in the wake of former Spur Doc Rivers' emotional address.
I didn't want to talk about it before the game because it's so hard, like, to just keep watching it. That video, if you watch that video, you don't need to be black to be outraged. You need to be American and outraged.
It is what is believed to be the first cancellation of games due to the coronavirus in the state of Texas in the first week of the 2020 high school football season. Kennedy has called off his game against Karn City this Saturday, as we told you first on the night beat last night. That's after the Kennedy Independent School District announced on their Facebook page late last night that a 3rd coach had tested positive for the coronavirus, bringing the total to 3 coaches and 1 player. With this new information, writes officials of the Kennedy School District, we feel the virus is still active. We've come to the decision to cancel this Saturday's football game with Karn City. Instead, the Badgers will now host Marion Saturday night at 7 after the Bulldogs had their season opener against Somerset canceled weeks ago.
We're on our bye week, getting ready for our week 2. Since we didn't have a week 1, we've kind of unfortunate. We've had two different teams cancel on us. I get a call at 9 o'clock last night from Karn City saying they've got an opportunity to play, and of course we jumped on it right away. And that's one thing that we wanted for our kids, is we want to make sure our kids are getting the opportunity to play, especially early in the season here, because you never know what's going to happen down the road.
Our Karn City School District officials say they will honor tickets purchased for the Kennedy game for Marion now on Saturday. The Houston Texans have shut down operations starting today at 2:30 due to the threat of Hurricane Laura bearing down on the Louisiana and Texas coast. The team will meet virtually tomorrow morning to decide if they believe it is safe to conduct their scrimmage on Thursday night. And I guess it just all depends on what happens between now and Thursday afternoon to decide whether or not they go ahead and conduct their scrimmage. If not, obviously they'll have to delay it.
Yeah, a lot of people watching Hurricane Laura very closely.
Big time.
Yeah. Thanks, Greg.
We'll be right back. Stay with us.
All right, so Laura, big deal, serious hurricane there along the Texas-Louisiana state line later on tonight. Around here, I want to reiterate, we're really not going to be affected at all. It's more of the same. Upper 90s, right near 100, partly cloudy, and just a few isolated showers tonight and tomorrow.
Thanks so much for watching the news at 5.
World News up next. We'll see you back here at 6.